I was the only one making the mortgage payments on the so-called family house, the one we were all supposed to own together, the one my mom called our future. But when I told them I was done paying, they didn't thank me for keeping us afloat for almost 2 years. They called me a traitor. It started with a phone call from my mom last week. She didn't even bother saying hello. Just launched straight into it. We need to talk about the house. Her voice was tight, rehearsed, the kind of tone she uses when she's already decided what I owe her. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the stack of bills in front of me, all of them in my name. What about it? I asked. You're 3 days late on the payment. I laughed. Out loud. I'm 3 days late? Mom, where's your share? Where's Michael's? Silence. And then, don't start. That's what she always says when she doesn't have an answer. It's the same tone she used when I was 16 and she borrowed the college savings account my grandparents left me. Back then she promised she'd pay it back. She didn't. This house was supposed to be different. She convinced me 2 years ago that buying it together would bring us closer as a family. Everyone would contribute equally. 3 adults, 3 shares. Easy math, right? Except apparently the equation always ends the same way in my family. I pay. They live. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to her breathe like she was the victim in all of this. Finally I said it. The thing I've been biting back for months. I'm done, Mom. I'm not paying anymore. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call dropped. Then finally she whispered, low and venomous. After everything I've done for you. I felt my chest tighten. Anger, guilt, the old familiar cocktail she's been serving me my whole life. And then came the words that told me this wasn't just about money. If you walk away from this, you're walking away from this family. That's when I laughed again. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. What family? The one that drains me until there's nothing left? The one that calls me selfish every time I say no? Before I could reply, she added, sharp and final. We'll see you on Sunday. Family meeting. And then she hung up. I didn't know it yet, but that meeting wasn't going to be a discussion. It was an ambush. And when I walked into that living room, I was going to find papers on the table. Bills, contracts, debts. All under my name. That was the moment everything changed. I grew up in a house where silence was survival. Where the smallest mistake could set off an explosion. And my only defense was to make myself useful. Don't upset your brother. That was my mom's favorite phrase. If Michael cried, somehow it was my fault. If he broke something, I had made him angry. If he lost, I should have let him win. By the time I was 10, I could sense his moods the way other kids sense the weather. When I was 12, I saved up months of allowance to buy him a baseball glove. He ripped it in half the same day because it wasn't the right color. Mom didn't scold him. She looked at me and said, "Why didn't you get blue? You know he hates red." That was the pattern. He smashed. She excused. And I paid. By high school, I was ghostwriting his essays, covering for his missed homework, sneaking him money for gas when he crashed his first car. I kept telling myself it would end one day. That adulthood would even the scales. It didn't. When I landed my first real job, they treated my paycheck like a family account. Rent? Groceries? Michael's endless debts? Somehow my card always came out first. When I hesitated, Mom's voice slid through the phone like a knife. Family sacrifices. You're lucky to have enough to help. Lucky. That word always tasted like rust in my mouth. The truth was I wasn't lucky. I was exhausted. But saying no in my family felt like detonating a bomb. So I kept saying yes. Until the house. Until they tricked me into signing papers that made me responsible for everything. And now, sitting in the driveway that Sunday, staring at their cars lined up like soldiers, I felt it again. That childhood tightness in my chest. The weight of being the designated fixer. Only this time I wasn't walking into their house as the child they could control. I was walking in with years of quiet rage. Ready to split open. I pushed the door open. And there they were. Mom at the head of the table. Michael leaning back smug. And in front of them, a stack of papers with my name printed in bold. The air inside the living room felt heavier than the thick curtains that blocked out the sun. I stepped in and every head turned. Mom sat at the head of the table like a judge about to deliver a sentence. Michael sprawled in his chair, smirking, spinning a pen between his fingers. 2 cousins I barely spoke to were there too, as if they had been recruited as witnesses. On the table, papers. Stacks of them. Electric bills. Loan statements. Mortgage contracts. Every single one with my name stamped across the top. "Sit down," Mom said. Her voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that hides a blade. I didn't sit. "What is this?" Michael leaned forward, tapping the pile with his pen. "This is what happens when you decide to walk away from your responsibilities." I laughed, short and bitter. "My responsibilities? Or yours?" His smirk twitched, but he didn't break. Mom folded her arms. "We've talked about this. The house belongs to all of us. If you don't keep up the payments, we all lose." "No," I said. My voice cut sharper than I expected. "I lose. Because everything here," I slapped the nearest bill, "is in my name. Not yours. Not Michael's. Mine." The cousins shifted uncomfortably, but Mom's expression didn't flicker. "That's just paperwork. You know the truth. This is a family home." We agreed. I cut her off. "No. You decided. And I went along because I thought maybe, just maybe, if I helped, things would finally be different." Michael leaned back again, laughing under his breath. "There it is. The martyr act. Always the victim, huh?" I turned on him. "You've never paid a single bill in this house. Not one. But somehow I'm the selfish one for saying I'm done?" His smile vanished. His eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than us because you make more money. You always have. Guess what? That house doesn't exist without me. I found it. I made the deal." "You signed nothing," I snapped. "You contributed nothing. You wanted the benefits without the burden. And Mom let you." The room went still. Michael's knuckles whitened around the pen. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, she said it. The sentence I'd been waiting for my whole life. "If you walk away from this, you're walking away from your family." I met her gaze, steady, unflinching. Then maybe I should have walked away years ago. The silence that followed wasn't silence at all. It was a fracture. And once something cracks that deep, it never heals the same. The moment hung heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. Michael's pen snapped in his grip, the plastic splintering between his fingers. He slammed the pieces on the table. "You think you can just walk away?" His voice was sharp, almost shaking. "You signed. Your name's on everything. If you stop paying, the bank takes the house. And guess who they come after first? You." I stared at him, heat rising in my chest. "You mean the house you live in for free?" His face reddened. "It's not free. I take care of things." I laughed harsh. "Like what? Drinking beer on the porch? Watching TV while I drain my account every month?" Mom's hand shot up, palm out. "Enough. Both of you." Her voice carried the weight of command, but for the first time, I wasn't that child who bowed under it. "No, Mom," I said, low but steady. "Not enough. Never enough. Not for you. Not for him." The cousins looked between us like spectators at a trial. None of them spoke, but their eyes told the story. They knew this was rotten. They just weren't brave enough to say it. Mom leaned forward, her voice cold steel. "You will refinance the mortgage in your name only. That way everything stays safe. The family stays safe." My stomach dropped. "You want me to take full responsibility? Alone?" She didn't blink. "You're the stable one. The successful one. Michael can't do it. And she sighed dramatically. "I don't have the income. It has to be you." I shook my head slowly. "No. Not this time." The room froze. Even Michael looked startled, like he hadn't expected me to say it outright. "What did you just say?" Mom asked. I said no. Her eyes flared, and for a moment, I thought she might actually hit me. Instead, she whispered, sharp and poisonous, "Ungrateful. After everything we've sacrificed for you." The laugh burst out of me before I could stop it. "What exactly did you sacrifice, Mom? My childhood? My savings? My sanity?" The table between us might as well have been a battlefield. Michael shoved his chair back, the legs screeching against the floor. "You don't mean this. You'll come crawling back. You always do." I stood too, meeting his glare head on. "Not anymore." The table creaked under the weight of the silence. It felt like the house itself was listening, waiting for the crack to widen. And when it did, nothing would hold. That night I didn't sleep. The argument replayed in my head on a vicious loop. Michael's smirk, Mom's venom, the stack of bills with my name like a noose tightening around my neck. Doom. I got out of bed, went to the closet, and dragged down the old storage box I hadn't touched in years. Inside, folders. Thick, heavy, bulging with papers I'd kept out of paranoia. Bank statements. Utility bills. Contracts. Receipts. I spread them across my kitchen table, page after page of proof. Electric bills paid by me. Gas me. Property taxes me. 2 years of living expenses, quietly drained from my account while they sat in that house and called it ours. And then I found it. One line on a mortgage renewal form. Michael's name scrawled in blue ink next to mine. Except his signature wasn't dated, and when I looked closer the handwriting was off. Too neat. Too careful. It wasn't his. It was Mom's. My hands trembled, fury and clarity mixing like fire and ice. She had forged his signature. Put me on the hook legally while protecting him. Protecting her golden boy. I sat back in my chair, staring at the mess of papers. For the first time in years, I felt something sharp and clean cutting through the fog of guilt they'd wrapped me in. Leverage. The next morning I put everything into a black folder and drove to the house. They were waiting. Of course they were. Mom at the table again, Michael pacing like a caged animal. Before they could speak, I dropped the folder onto the wood with a thud that echoed through the room. "What's this?" Mom asked, narrowing her eyes. 2 years of proof, I said. Every bill, every payment, every lie. And one little forgery. Her face went pale. Michael froze mid-step. I opened the folder, flipped the page and slid the forged signature across the table. "You did this, Mom. Not me. Not Michael. You. And if the bank sees it, do you know what happens?" The color drained from her face. Michael glanced at her, confusion flickering into panic. I leaned forward, my voice steady, low, lethal. "This isn't a family home. It's my prison. And I just found the key." The silence that followed wasn't victory. Not yet. It was the sound of a wall cracking, just before it collapses. Mom's hand hovered over the paper like she could will it back into the folder. Back into silence. Michael's eyes darted between us, his confusion curdling into rage. "What the hell is this?" he snapped. "What's she talking about?" I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed locked on hers. "You forged his name, Mom. You made me the sole payer, and you thought I'd never notice." Her lips parted, closed, then pressed into a thin line. "You're being dramatic." Dramatic. I shoved the paper toward her. "That's a felony. You signed your son's name and chained me to this house." Michael grabbed the page, scanning it with a furrowed brow. His face darkened. "Did you really do this?" he asked, his voice low. Mom's jaw tightened. "It was for us. For the family. If I hadn't, we would have lost the house." "You mean I would have lost the house?" I said. "Because everything is under my name. And you knew it." Michael slammed his fist on the table so hard the coffee mugs rattled. "You lied to me? You told me she wanted to take control. You made me," he broke off, pointing at me. "You made me think she was screwing us over." The room vibrated with his fury. For once it wasn't aimed at me. Mom reached for him, her voice sharp. "Don't turn this around. You don't understand what she's like." But he yanked his arm back. "No. You used me. You used both of us." I stood, pushing the folder closer to them. "No more. I've kept records. Every dollar. Every lie. If you try to pin this house on me again, if you push me one more time, I'll take this straight to the bank. Let them see who's been living here for free while I bleed myself dry." Mom's face twisted, fury and fear colliding. "You wouldn't dare." I leaned in, inches from her, my voice sharp enough to cut. "Watch me." The storm broke then, not with shouts but with silence. Michael pacing, Mom frozen. Me standing above them with 2 years of their secrets in my hands. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one cornered. They were. Michael's pacing grew tighter, his steps sharp and restless, like a wolf caught in a trap. Mom sat rigid, eyes locked on the folder as if it might burst into flames. Finally she spoke. "You think this proves anything? You think anyone cares? You'll just ruin yourself. I almost laughed. Ruin myself? Mom, you already did that when you signed his name on a federal document. Michael stopped pacing. His voice cracked when he turned to her. You forged my signature? You told me she was the problem. You told me she was trying to push me out. Don't be stupid, Mom hissed. I did it for you. For both of you. To keep us together. Michael's face twisted, betrayal, confusion. Rage all knotted together. Together? You chained her to this house like a mule and let me blame her for it. For once I saw it, the mask slipping. The golden boy realizing he was just another pawn. Mom leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper, desperate. She doesn't love you like I do. She's selfish. Always has been. Don't let her turn you against me. But Michael's glare slid from her to me. So all this time you carried it alone? Yes, I said steady. 2 years of bills. 2 years of lies. While you both pretended it was shared. He swore under his breath, raking a hand through his hair. Then suddenly, he slammed his chair back and barked. Fine. You want out? Get out. Leave the house. Leave everything. I stared at him. Calm. Cold. You don't get it. I already did. All those bills? Cancelled. My name is off everything as of this morning. Mom shot up from her chair, her face blotchy red. You what? You heard me, I said. The utilities, the accounts, the automatic payments. All gone. This house, your so-called family home, isn't mine anymore. It's yours. All yours. Michael blinked, realization hitting like a blade. The weight he thought I'd carry forever now sat squarely on his shoulders. Mom's voice cracked, shrill and panicked. You can't do this. The bank will. I cut her off. The bank will come for whoever's left. And it's not me. The room spun into chaos then. Mom shouting, Michael cursing, but I didn't flinch. I just gathered the folder, slid the forged paper back inside, and said the only thing that mattered. I won't be your prisoner anymore. Then I walked out. And for the first time I heard it. The house groaning behind me, like it knew its blood supply had just been cut off. The calls started before I even got home. First Michael screaming into the phone, voice cracking with fury. Then Mom, leaving voicemails dripping with venom and panic. You don't understand what you've done. You'll regret this. This family will never forgive you. I didn't answer. I sat in my kitchen, lights off, the black folder on the table beside me like a silent weapon. By morning the family chat had lit up. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people who hadn't spoken to me in months were suddenly typing paragraphs. Mom's version spread fast. I'd abandoned them. I'd stolen money. I'd cut myself out of the family. First I stayed silent. But then one cousin, the only one who ever believed me, sent a screenshot. Michael raging in the chat, insisting I was lying, that I never paid for anything, that he carried it all. That's when I knew. They weren't just trying to rewrite the story. They were trying to erase me from it. So I opened the folder. I took photos of every page, every bill, every receipt, every forged line of ink, and dropped them all into the chat. No captions. No explanations. Just truth bleeding across the screen. The chat went dead. Minutes passed. Then the reactions trickled in. Shocked emojis. Silence. One aunt simply wrote, "So she was the one keeping the house afloat?" Another, "That signature doesn't look like Michael's." Mom left the group. Michael followed. But the damage was already done. The shadows they cast over me for years were thinning, torn open by the light of proof. That night I sat by my window, phone buzzing with messages I didn't bother reading. The house wasn't my prison anymore. It was theirs. And for the first time I felt something like freedom pressing against my ribs. Not peace. Not yet. But something sharp and clean. The sound of chains breaking. 2 weeks later, the house began to eat them alive. I heard about it through whispers, neighbors, a cousin who couldn't resist gossip, a banker who accidentally sent me a notice still tied to my old email. The power got shut off first. Then the gas. Then the foreclosure letters started arriving. Big red stamps across the envelopes like open wounds. Michael tried to pick up extra work, but he'd never carried weight in his life. He stumbled, blamed everyone else, drank more, raged harder. Mom called relatives, begged, spun new versions of the story where I was a monster who betrayed the bloodline. But no one reached for them. Because now everyone had seen the receipts. Everyone had seen the forgery. The house, once her symbol of unity, had become a mausoleum of lies. Neighbors' set shouting spilled into the night. Windows slammed. Michael stormed out more than once, only to crawl back days later. And me? I didn't answer a single call. I didn't send a single cent. One night around midnight my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Just one line. Please. You're still my daughter. Don't let us lose everything. I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered. And then I deleted it. Because the truth was they'd already lost everything. The second I stopped bleeding for them, the house began collapsing on itself. And for once I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter. Like I was finally watching the fire burn from the outside instead of standing inside the flames. By the end of the month the bank had taken it. The family home was gone. Sold to strangers. And all I felt was relief. I drove past the house just once after the bank took it. The windows were boarded. A foreclosure notice clung to the front door like a scarlet letter. The garden, where Mom used to say we'd plant roses for the family, was nothing but weeds and broken beer bottles. Michael's car was gone. Mom's too. No sign of life. No sign of history. Just an empty shell. I parked for a moment, engine humming, staring at the place that had been branded ours, and chained to my neck like a curse. And for the first time I saw it clearly. It was never a home. It was a coffin. The phone buzzed on my passenger seat. Mom. Again. I didn't answer. I didn't even read the voicemail. Instead I scrolled through my call log. Dozens of missed calls, messages, desperate attempts to claw their way back in. Then I did something I never thought I'd have the strength to do. I pressed delete all. Blocked both numbers. Silence filled the car. A heavy, perfect silence. Not the kind that used to choke me when I lived under their roof. This silence felt clean. Final. I pulled away from the curb, leaving the house to rot behind me. Every mile I drove felt like a chain falling away. Every turn like another door slamming shut on a life I no longer owed anyone. For years they called me selfish for wanting peace. But as I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror, I finally understood. It wasn't selfish to leave. It was survival. And that last door, the one I closed by blocking them, wasn't the end. It was the beginning.